The ancient Greeks were realists who designed their combat competitions to simulate the skills needed to survive in battle. Wrestling, boxing, pankration, throwing the javelin, and other Olympic events were conceived as ideal means of preparing young men for armed combat, and those who competed were worshipped as heroes whose feats rival the mythology of the gods themselves. Neither weight divisions nor timed rounds were recognized in pankration. The fights were held in an open sandpit called a scamma. Interruptions occurred if a pancratius left the scamma, either by choice or by force. The athletes took pride in never retreating, unless the grappling and clinching action took them there. In extensively long matches, fighters would sometimes agree to decide the conflict by climax. They would take turns hitting each other unresisted, Ray Seffel versus Mark Hunt style, until one of them went down. More on this later. Pancratius competed naked, as was customary of the Greek athletes of old. The only prohibitions were the use of the nails and teeth against the opponent. Outside of that, competitors sought victory by any means possible. Injury and even death were unavoidable. The few rules they did have were enforced by a referee, or, I'm not gonna try that, who was armed by a whip or rod to punish violators. Those who cheated or did not listen to the ref would be fined and sometimes banned from the games forever. Let's kick off the story with a small Sicilian athlete nicknamed Halter. As we have mentioned, there were no weight divisions in pankration, but that did not stop the smaller Halter from becoming an undefeated champion. How? One word. Leg locks. Wait, that's 2 words. Now you may be thinking this Halter guy is probably a time-traveling blue belt who torrented some John Danaher DVDs. But in fact, leg locks are all over ancient Hellenistic art, implying they had some level of understanding about these positions. As the story goes, Halter visited an oracle and asked how he could overcome his size and still win fights. The response was, by being trampled on, which sounds like some of the worst coaching of all times. In his following fight, however, Halter had an epiphany and discovered the hidden meaning behind the oracle's words.
After throwing him an Ori, submit this motherfucker.
By attacking his opponent's heels from underneath, he could mitigate their superior strength and weight. This allowed Halter to become an absolute legend and have one of the most impressive records in pankration Olympic history. Alexander the Great. Nope, not that guy. Yeah, that guy. To prove the superiority of a soldier's fighting prowess over that of an athlete, proposed a challenge to Dioxippus of Athens, the Olympic pankration champion of 336 BCE, who, by all accounts, was a total badass, because he won the event without even fighting. No one would dare challenge him. But Dioxippus, on the other hand, eagerly accepted the challenge to face one of Alexander's best Macedonian warriors, Choragus. On the day of the duel, Choragus was fully armed and armored in battle gear, while his opponent, as befitting a Greek combat athlete, brought nothing but a balance club to the duel. Dioxippus was able to dodge and deflect both javelin and sword attacks effortlessly. In a final move to defeat the Pancratius, Choragus drew his dagger, but the former trapped his hand and swept him to the ground. The skillful Athenian then placed his foot upon his opponent's neck, looked towards the crowd, and raised his club in victory. The Macedonian soldiers in attendance were in a state of shock and utter embarrassment at the ease with which Dioxippus made their comrade look like a puss. Furious, they conspired against Dioxippus, putting a golden cup underneath his pillow and accusing him of theft. Feeling dishonored, Dioxippus wrote a letter to Alexander explaining that he had been framed and telling him to go f*** himself, and in one final act of defiance committed suicide by falling on his sword. During the Nemean Games, legendary boxers Krugas of Durrës and Damoxenus of Syracuse fought for hours without a decision. Finally, as the sun began to set on the final event of the day, they decided to settle the fight via a climax. Krugas delivered the first punch. In return, Damoxenus struck Krugas on the side with his bare hand and tore out his intestines. The Argives disqualified Damoxenus, and Krugas was posthumously declared the winner. And now for our final and perhaps most amazing tale, as told by the historian Lucian, and I quote, "For right here is the men's Pankration. Oricchion is taking the crown for it. Though it is indeed a great thing that he already won twice at Olympia, what has just now happened is greater. He has won at the cost of his life and goes to the land of the blessed with the very dust of struggle. Don't think this is the result of chance. There were very clear plans for victory. The one strangling Oricchion is depicted as a corpse, as he submits, but Oricchion is depicted as all victors are. Indeed, his blush is blooming and his sweat is still fresh, and he smiles, as do the living, when they perceive their victory." Philostratus' account of the events shine a bit more light. In relaxing the tension of his legs, he failed to forestall the scheme of a recount, for the latter kicked back with the sole of his right foot, as the result of which his right side was imperiled, since now his knee was hanging unsupported, and throwing his weight down towards the left while he locks the foot tightly inside his own knee, he wrenches the ankle from its socket. A recount's failure to tap was the result of his trainer Erixias shouting to him, "What a noble epitaph, he was never defeated at Olympia." Man's natural tendency to test his knowledge, courage, and skill and prove his superiority over opposition was certainly the initial stimulus that gave rise to martial arts throughout the ages. But no civilization ever placed athletics in such high regards as the Hellenes. Their rich history of combat gives us with a glimpse into the past. Don't forget to subscribe. Till next time. Peace.